Yeah, thank you very much, Johannes, and thanks for the very cool and interesting keynote. Always good to hear your thoughts on those topics. And yeah, I will go to the slides for the next point of order, which is our project showcase, and I will remove you, Johannes. Yeah, I'm very happy about this. This has been requested for quite some time. So yeah, talking and spreading the word about our projects has not been our strong suit in the last years. We totally know that, and that's why I'm even more excited that I got together 10 projects from this year, last year, but mostly this year to talk about what they did. And it will be a quick fire round, but let me just give you like a little bit of overview. So this year there were over 150 team members in 37 projects. That includes projects that started last year and those who are still running. But yeah, that's a huge number and a huge number of projects, and super excited to see some of them today. I will probably talk more about those graphs tomorrow in my little keynote tomorrow morning. So if you want to learn more about what kind of data we analyze and what kind of project types we have, you can join me tomorrow in that. But I think the main takeaway, as you can see from looking at the bar charts, is that visualization and automation are kind of our bread and butter projects. That's what we do quite a bit at Correlate, and operational data, like data that naturally occurs in the work of organizations, is yeah, that's just there. So it makes sense to analyze it and to visualize it. But yeah, more about that tomorrow. About the next hour. So we have, I think, 9 projects. One person, unfortunately, got sick last minute. So 9 projects in 3 sections. So first we'll have a bit about communicating your work with data visualization. Then we will have 3 projects in the managing data and data automation work, and then getting insights into your data analysis and modeling. And each block is approximately 20 minutes total, 10 minutes rapid lightning talks, and then 10 minutes Q&A. So please make sure to ask questions. For that, you can go to the stage tab on Hopin. So right now we have been hanging out in the event chat, but it would be great if you head over to to the stage tab, and then you can also ask questions in the Q&A or in the chat, however you like. With that, I think I will give over to Lucas for the first talk about the Mare Liberum project. Hello, Lucas.
Hello. Yeah, thanks, Fee. So I will present the Hamburg chapter of Correlate and our project with the NGO Mare Liberum. So first, let me give you a short introduction to Mare Liberum. It is an NGO which monitors the current human rights situation in the Aegean Sea, that is between Greece and Turkey, using their own ships. They are not directly involved in rescuing people in distress, but rather see themselves as independent observers who conduct research in order to publicize the circumstances at the European border. They are looking at the roles of different European and Turkish institutions like Coast Guards, Frontex, who often block and prevent refugees from landing in Greece or in Greece islands. And such an incident is called the pushback. I came in contact with the organization as a friend of mine was volunteering there, and they wanted to improve their data visualization and communication skills. And somewhat long-term issue was the data storage and access. But the main focus was to provide visualizations for their upcoming annual report on pushbacks. The problem was that the organization did not have sufficient knowledge of how to do that. The data we worked with was a single Excel file with more than 300 documented cases of pushbacks. And the variables for each incident provide information such as the location and the date, the number of people involved, and other information about the sources and further material. As there was at least one person who was somewhat familiar with R, we also used R for the analysis process. We had some feedback loops with the organization, and in the end, we provided the code and the outputs of our visualizations for the annual report. The documented code was then given to Mare Liberum. And additionally, we proposed a more, let's say, concise way of collecting and storing data with the help of a tool named Kobo Toolbox, which offers free and unlimited use for humanitarian organizations. So in the end, I am quite happy about the resulting report and our work, but what I find most exciting was that Mare Liberum was able to use our code and adapt it. In doing so, they were able to improve their communication on social media, like Instagram, as you see here, or on Twitter, and also on their own website. So these are not examples of our visualizations, but I thought it was much cooler that they were able to adapt our code and improve it. So that was it.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. That was pretty great. And I already have a question for later, but first I will put François, and I'm still missing Sophia, or maybe she can't join after all.
She should be here.
She should be here.
If she is not here, I will talk through her part. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I think she has issue with internet. So we did this project with we worked together with the Hacklab Foundation in Ghana, and we visualized or created a report of the first survey of people who code in Ghana. And the Hacklab Foundation, they prepared the youth in Ghana for their future jobs in technology, and among other things, they also conducted a survey of the developers and the coders in Ghana. And the goal was to be able to give the statistics and insights or a better picture about the community and prepare young developers to make better decisions in their career. And on the next slide, I will quickly talk about why we did this. So they did this survey and they collected this report, and they had to communicate the results.
Sorry.
They had to communicate the results, and we did this through an online visual report. And so our goal was data visualization, and we communicated about the characteristics of the developer, the preferred tools, and the career backgrounds. And on the next slides, we will see how we did it. And this is we used R and R Markdown for this online interactive data report. And the result is a standalone HTML file that can be hosted anywhere on the web, and everything is embedded in the file, so the visualizations and data too. And we designed a custom CSS theme that reflects the branding of the foundation, and this report is reproducible. So if next year the foundation were to run the same survey, you will be able to use our code and update the survey with new data. On the right, you see how it looks like, and so you can scroll up and down, and you have a menu where you can click on the chapters, a lot of visuals, textual information, and we have some tabs where the users can learn more about subgroups of the respondents, like professional developers, students, men or women. And that's it. Thanks a lot for listening to us today. On the last slide, you will find the links to the report or the code or the website of our partner, the Hacklab Foundation.
I will try to copy some of them over quickly into the chat. But yeah, thanks so much. Let me just copy at least the repo. And yeah, thank you, Francois. Sad that Sophia somehow got lost in the link jungle of that is this event. But yeah, she definitely also played a huge part in this project. And yeah, next up from the Netherlands chapter, actually. So for those of you who don't know, we also have a very active Netherlands chapter, which is actually its own organization. And they also contributed 2 or 3 projects to the showcase. So hi, Federico. And I think you have to unmute yourself and then can start talking.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to show our MoseMerrMalin project that we did run in collaboration with the Sustainable Leadership of Kosovo and the Institute of GIS and Geospatial Technology of Kosovo. And basically, we joined the efforts to address the deforestation issue in Kosovo. Well, I'm on behalf of the team, the volunteers, Alik, Jordi, and I, and then Masrat and Drew from the Correlate team, and Indira, Rina, and Farouk from SLK. We had a different background, was more GIS and remote sensing specialist, Alik more data science, and Jordi more about visualization and graphics. So yeah, well, we have the main problem to tackle was deforestation, but with the related other 2 problems of the validation of the data retrieved by the institute and the corruption and no transparency in the communication by the government of Kosovo. So the goals of the project were to validate first these geospatial results, create a spread awareness somehow with the online platform, or and then we came up with a story map and to tell a story. So a big part was to create the storyline. How we did so, our solution was to well, first of all, what kind of data did we use for it? Earth observation data, because they are scalable. They use multi-spectral instruments, near real-time alerts, cost effectiveness, and are usually not disputable information. We came up with a solution of a digital story map. If we can go to the next slide. And first, we validated the result with against the Global Forest Watch results. We create the story with the help of a master story Ashraf, and we developed this online platform that could include these 3 factors. So use maps and data to have a data-driven approach and proof of what we wanted to communicate, appealing graphics and touch points to get in touch with the organization and take action. And in the next slide, and there is a link as well. If yeah, that is the actual platform. We dedicated a platform to 2 main.
One second, I think I have to reshare my screen because I did not. Okay, like this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you scroll down basically quickly, you will see that it's dedicated for 2 different stakeholders. If you click on activists or click it there, basically it's really well for adults and for take actions with touch points, numbers, with the map displaying the cumulative deforestation in the entire country. It takes some time to load.
Nice.
Zoom out, and then down there as well other comparison like sliders to see before and after deforestation events, and the comparison with different other type of data. And the other version instead is more for educational purposes.
One second, go back and
yeah, you can click on the house, little house, yeah, and then for the students, you can have their a light version for kids, basically what is deforestation, what is the problem, and what are the data about the Kosovo situation and deforestation.
There's also a map. That's nice.
Yes.
Already like yeah, getting the children involved with the maps. That's important.
Yes.
So it's the same visualization, just framed differently.
The data were the same, but the way we're trying to represent them was different, with a different story.
Okay, I will also post this in the chat. Okay, should I go back to the presentation?
No, I'm done.
No, we're not done. Sorry. Okay, great. Thank you. That was great. Great. I will. Actually, now we already are at the at our Q&A. So I will add Lucas and Federico and François and Sophia. Sadly, still not here. Unfortunate. Back to the chat, to the screen. And so there was one question about data. I mean, you can answer that for your projects. I can give a general answer later. Is the data that you use for the projects open source? Who wants to go?
I can start because I know the answer. It is because the responsibility. So the data was collected by our partner, the Hacklab Foundation, and they decided to publish it. So the data is accessible and public, and you will find it if you clicked on, for instance, the GitHub link that you see in the chat.
Great. For Federico and Lucas, what about, so Federico, I don't know about the forest data. Was that also open source or?
Yeah, we used basically, well, the data for deforestation were run by the institute, Farouk, the person of Farouk, and he used Landsat and Copernicus data from the European Space Agency. So these are open and free accessible data. And then we compare against the Global Forest Watch, which is another great platform where worldwide, for free, you can check the deforestation data. So everything was for free and open.
Okay. Great. Is the code also open somewhere, or is that not open?
The code of the Global Forest Watch it is, but it's not the one, at least for now, from the institute. So the data that we received to be validated.
Okay, great. And Lucas, I don't know about the data from the organization, but you built like a Google Sheet for them. Was that on Excel, right? So
no,
it's probably
so
not
the data from the organization is not accessible, as they use sources. So they have more material like images and sources of the incidents and so on. So they don't want to have all of this information open access.
So hi, first of all, Sophia made it here. Sorry for the confusion. I should have sent you the link.
No problem. My internet was also very bad, I hope. It's not, you're a bit frozen. So we got another question from Andrew, which is like the Gretchenfrage, of course, of everything that we do. To keep in line with Johannes' keynote, what kind of impact do you think did your project have?
Maybe I will just
go on.
Okay, now, so I think in our case, it was quite evident that the organization was now able to communicate on their own. So it was a little bit like we help them help themselves. So I think in that case, that would be considered an impact.
Nice. Sophia, you wanted to say something?
No. It was just I thought this question was for us, but
no, it's also for you. It's for everyone. So So what do you think your project, what kind of impact did you have, or did the project have?
Yeah, I also think that we had an impact, and it was a really informed of like showcasing all the information to other people, and for us it was just giving more information, and to do with your career, then it's better if you know what others do and have like statistics and numbers to back up your decisions.
Yeah, I think that was really helpful for the people, for young developers in Ghana, and they also did a very good event about launching the census report. Maybe Francois or Sophia, you can also post that into the event, into the stage chat, this YouTube video. I think it's somewhere, right? Otherwise, I will pick it up later. Okay. One last question, Federico. I think your impact was also quite obvious. That was really good for learning more about this issue. One last question before we move on to the next one. What is the most challenging thing you guys encounter while working with nonprofit organizations? Any like one sentence story that stuck to your
Probably not having a clear path from the beginning of what they wanted from us. So they wanted to spread awareness, but this can be done in a lot of things and ways. And so we had the data, and then we tried to stuck with them, and we focus on how to display this better and how to create an impact. In fact, if you see the map, for example, usually you have just deforestation per each year with a slider, and we decide to have a slider that increasingly shows the incremental deforestation per year. So at the end of the slider, you will have the deforestation in the last 10 years. And this obviously help to create impact. And this is something that the organization usually doesn't know, right? So you have to kind of guide them into this loop of how can we make something that can have more impacts and can help you to gather more actions from citizens and decision makers, and create the story. So it was our work. It was more than data related to. It was more create the story map. So it's create this the storyline. This was quite challenging because
that was probably also nice experience for you, right? Because you're like a Giz expert. So
how to tell this story. Usually I'm just good at making maps, and I don't need to to make it nice for sure in the sense of but sometimes it becomes, especially with the members of the organization, really emotional, because obviously they are super attached to this topic. And they are seeing a problem, and they feel like they don't have enough power to do so. But giving a tool to express and to create awareness about this, I guess, was the most grateful things that we could end up with.
Nice. Okay. Any other challenges that the other two encountered in their projects?
Shall I go? Maybe. I think it's a bit related to what Federico just said, but it's when designing a report, if you want to create insights for the local context, I'm not really well aware of the really what is useful for young developers in Ghana. So you need really a good relation with the NPO to be able to find this insight that are really relevant for the local context. And this is something that was not directly, we did not directly think about this, but we discovered along the project. To try to be better there.
I mean, that's also involves a lot of communication and a lot of time spent together. Okay, I think we have to move on. Sorry, Lucas, if you wanted to contribute something to this question, but let's move on to the next. I will remove you three and pull up the slides again. thanks so much for the insights into your projects. That was really great. 1 second, I have to find my slides again. Project showcase. Yeah. It's not doing anything. 1 second. Try again. Okay. Maybe someone else has to share then. Okay. First up is Daniela. Maybe I will try again. Sorry, Daniela, for the delay. Hi, first of all, how are you doing?
Hi.
I will try to share again. And it is weirdly broken. Okay. Change. Okay, let's see. Aha, now it works again. Sorry for the delay.
No worries.
Okay, Daniela will tell us about the Kulturen im Kiez project, which is also a very special project dear to my heart because it was just very, I don't know, a bit out of the ordinary for us. Okay.
That's true. So thank you. Let's start. So yeah, welcome to everyone. My name is Daniela, and I would like to give an introduction to the project of Kulturen im Kiez. So I would like to start with a few information on the organization. Kulturen im Kiez is committed to an intercultural community. So they focus on counseling of people of all origins, which recently arrived in Berlin. So it's a German organization trying to integrate new people to the city there. They try to create a sense of gender democratic society. So this is like their main goal. The timeline for this project was very short. It was just about 2 months, and it was also a very short team. It was just me doing that. The tool I used was exclusively Microsoft Excel, due to the challenge they have and also the conditions they had. So the challenge for this organization was that they are requested to provide information on their counseling sessions to their sponsors. And everything they need for this is happening in one Excel file. So all the data collection, all key figures are out of this one file, all kind of analysis they are doing for themselves, it's happening there, but it's very manual. So they use manual filters to get their information. Another challenge was with this Excel file that the table continued to grow in white. It's really very small there, but maybe you can see that each month got another column. So that makes it very, it was losing its clarity. And in general, the original file that was created for this purpose was no longer sufficient. So what we did there on the next slide, the solution was restructuring the Excel file from the ground. So it was mostly by transforming month from the columns to rows. That leads to another growth of the spreadsheet. So it's growing downwards now. And while doing this, I also added a few automated input functions. Maybe you can see there that in column C, for example, there's the person's ID. And if this is a person already known, there are information on this person added automatically now in columns D to F. And also in this new file, there are some predefined reports for the team. So that makes it easier for them to answer the most common questions, and they don't need all this manual filtering anymore. The impact we're having on this organization now is, first of all, it's way faster and quicker to pull the relevant key figures. They use predefined reports for their own analysis as well. And also on the side of data entry, they are faster now because of this automated field entry functions. And in whole, the new structure is working long term since it's growing downwards. So they can use this file for the future. And this makes it easier, faster for them to do this administrative stuff, and they can concentrate on their actual work. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you. And I definitely have one or two comments in for the Q&A. I hope someone else as well. Okay. Then next up is Tim for the Science on Stage project with a large team, but only Tim is here. Otherwise, the stage would be too full.
That's true. Hi.
Right.
Yeah, shall I just start?
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
So overall, we started in spring, as Fries said, with a team of 6 people. So that was good for us because 2 or 3 people could work on one of the APIs that we were scraping. And because some of us were not that familiar with kind of scraping APIs in general, that was quite helpful that we could always kind of work in teams for the challenges that were ahead of us. But I jumped a little bit ahead. So the organization we were working with was Science on Stage, and that's an NGO that brings teachers together from Germany and from Europe, mostly STEM teachers. STEM teachers are teachers who are kind of teachers for the technical subjects, so to say. And they were doing like networking events where teachers can get to know each other and kind of work together for example, kind of collecting teaching materials, but also they were providing kind of materials for the teachers on the website, just overall, whatever makes the teacher's life easier, that's what they were focusing on. They have a lot of different data sources. I will get to that in a second. That's the next slide. But the overall goal was to kind of bring all these data sources together in a kind of human readable format. We were pretty lucky with Daniela, who was on the kind of part of Science on Stage, because she was pretty like knowledgeable about R and is also teaching herself programming. So we were lucky to help her, but other people in the organization are not that familiar with kind of even looking at Excel files sometimes if there are lots of graphics and calculations in there. So we had to make it kind of very beginner friendly and into a readable format in the end result. Like everything we collect from the APIs had to be like approachable to a person who is not that kind of knowledgeable in the technical area, I'd say. Then the next slide, please. These are the tools we were working with. Matomo is just a tool to scrape data from the website, like either how many people visit the websites, but also how many downloads there are. And for the teaching materials they were providing, it was kind of very important what's the kind of material that is most downloaded, what's the materials most teachers ask for. So they were pretty interested in those numbers. SurveyMonkey is just a tool to kind of regenerate feedback. For example, after you had a meeting with the teachers, like what can we do better next time? This is just to collect opinions and then kind of form an opinion after you collected them. Click Meeting is pretty simple. It's also a meeting platform. And there you can actually scrape data like how many people joined, at what time were they joining, when did they leave the meeting. So it was a little bit more complex also because there are just Excel files from the past and also an Access Microsoft database with data. So kind of the kind of actual data that is pretty new and fresh had to be combined with data that's already present and was collected in the past and then all put into these reports. Next slide, please. Lessons learned. We were starting in spring and it took us a little bit longer than expected. So I think it's always good to set your own deadlines. We also plan to do a whole package like that. Also, at some point, we just have to say we're now doing scripts. We don't kind of manage to do a whole package in the end. Maybe that's more interesting material for an upcoming project. One of the problems was also, which we took a long time kind of doing when we scrape data from APIs, always kind of make clear what kind of encoding you're using. Kind of lots of times we built this kind of wonderful little programs, and then we found out that the report that we created was not readable because, for example, an umlaut or something looks kind of quite confusing, and then you kind of spend hours debugging because of encoding problems. That's basically just the point of that each API has its quirks and limitations. One of the bigger problems was also that we were not sure for the click meeting API if the data is really stored for how long, because in the kind of docs it said it's only stored for a couple of months. So we also had to make sure that the data we scrape is saved in a way that it's kind of even in 2 years we could look at the data if we wanted to, and also have like kind of the general privacy limitations of an NGO in mind. But otherwise, I'd say it was a pretty successful project, and Daniela was satisfied with our work, and I was happy to be part of it. And now I'm on to the next one already.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Remove you and move on to Christina. Yes, Christina and Simon, right? That's correct. And don't worry, guys, we have a bit of a buffer because one project is not here, so you don't have to rush yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, Free. That's definitely an advantage for us. Simon and I were part of the project that worked to automate reporting for Citizens for Europe. Citizens for Europe is a Berlin-based organization who, amongst many other great things, definitely check them out, surveys organizations and communities about their internal diversity, work climate, or measures they have to support inclusion. And, well, they make reports of those surveys and wanted to have a standardized report template to simplify their workflow. Next slide. Mm-hmm. And one way to go, and many of you probably know about that, is to make a parameterized report in R Markdown. So you have a standard report template that can take variable inputs, for example, differing data sets for different organizations. And what you see on the left is a header of such a report that defines those parameters. But we were faced with certain challenges towards that approach. For example, we not only had a completely standardized report, but some organization-specific question batteries. The report should have multiple output languages, and also elements of the report were depending on the audience the report was directed at. So was that a technical or non-technical audience? And the report elements themselves were created by multiple different members and teams of Citizens for Europe who not always had a technical background in R. So we needed a more flexible and collaboration-friendly approach for that. Next slide. Thanks.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Simon. I'll take over and briefly elaborate on our proposed solution and the automation infrastructure that we implemented in R. So essentially, we try to design a modular workflow with several inputs and a PDF as well as HTML skeleton as output. We use 2 YAML config files to specify central report metadata, such as the language, API info, survey period, and then also a config file for our markdown parameters that determine the styling of the final output. Secondly, we had custom text and code blocks. So these were the central building blocks of our report. And these were manually defined by the organization to give some custom plots, so to say, or paragraphs. And then in the right top corner, you can see that we also extracted the survey data from the Lime Survey API. We pre-processed the data and in order to enable streamlined data handling down the line. In the middle of the workflow, you can see our main workhorse. It's an R script, and it has 2 purposes, basically. It automatically generates some additional text and code blocks. You can think of it as boilerplate content that very much depends on the concrete items that are included in the survey. And then this R script also brings together all of the building blocks, all of the components, and creates a final R Markdown template. And the user could then take this R Markdown template, apply some final edits, and hopefully generate or render this R Markdown file into PDF or HTML using knitr. And then at the end, we ship this whole workflow as a simple GitLab repository. So yeah, clearly we were no professional experts in designing a product like this, but the main advantage that we envisioned was to have a workflow where it's very easy and flexible to add and remove elements without rewriting large parts of the final report. And hopefully we delivered on that. So thanks again for all the people involved. And of course, we're happy to address any questions in the upcoming Q&A. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that was a good round up of projects that we do in the more data management and automation work. Kind of prototype project, I think, is what Tim and his team did for Science on Stage. That's a typical use case by now, where we have lots of data sources, and we have to somehow get them all together. And Daniela's project I definitely love, because that it shows like Excel is still very relevant and it's not gone. And we also need to address the issues that come with using Excel, even though it's a great tool. And I will have a look at the Q&A. I don't think there were any specific questions. I mean, there were some questions that were more addressed to me. I think one thing that I wanted to ask, first of all, what did I want to ask? I mean, you can also answer the questions from before, like what kind of impact do you think your project have? I think Daniela answered it on the slide, so he doesn't have to answer again unless you want to. But yeah, Tim and Christina and Simon, what would you say was the impact of your project?
Like from the perspective of the NGO you're talking, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can also say what was the impact for you personally. That's also nice to know.
So for Science on Stage, I think the overall impact, which was also the kind of goal at the beginning, was just to save time due to the automation process. I think we were also kind of a little bit successful in kind of teaching Daniela, our kind of partner person at Science on Stage, how to code and to get familiar with kind of scripts and R in general. And for the future, I think it's just always very important that someone from the NGO continues the work that we were doing, that it's not just, okay, this is nice to have, and the next year there will be someone else. But Daniela also said she will kind of make sure that she shares the materials with all the other people in the NGO and kind of also use it in the future. So I hope it has a long-term impact in kind of being recycled or looked at for a longer time and not just for the next couple of months.
That's Christina, no, you go ahead first and then I will comment on that.
So I think for our project, it's still quite difficult to evaluate the impact, because the project itself is like finished from our side, but CFE is not quite done with actually implementing it in their work. So I think we'll see in the future how well it actually works in practice. But as far as we talk to Lisa and other people from the NGO, they were quite satisfied with the outcome we had now in the end. But we're definitely thrilled about seeing it in practice and hearing more.
Yeah, that should be exciting, like all the complicated, or not complicated, but the sophisticated stuff that you came up with. Definitely.
Yeah, let's see when it breaks.
Yeah, that's software. Yeah, just one more comment about what Tim said. So yeah, first of all, I think a lot of the impact in those kind of projects like automation, and also like what Daniela did with optimizing the data entry in Excel, it's a lot about time. And because time is very scarce anyway, and in the social sector, I feel there's even less time to do things. So I think anything that helps to save a little bit of time and nerves is very impactful. People then don't have to, I don't know, scroll through hundreds of columns of Excel or have to manually pull data together or have to render each report individually. So I think that's always good. And one more thing about like the long-term impact, what Tim also said. Yeah, that's kind of why we also do a lot of data visualization projects and one-time reporting stuff, because we know that this is kind of has a direct impact, and with every time we develop some sort of software, we are faced with the challenges of the long-time impact. But that's why it's so nice to have people like Daniela or Lisa and Juan and Citizens for Europe who can also maintain this and hopefully use it long-term. Good. That just one comment from my side, and then we move on to the last block of. So first of all, thank you, folks, for your inputs, and let us move on to the last block, which is about data insights, analysis, and modeling. So unfortunately, one project cannot join. The person got sick. So we will directly start with Andreas and Eileen. Hi.
Hi.
And the slides. The slides. Okay. You, I will have to skip. Here we are.
Oh.
First, second.
No. One.
So.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Yeah, so Andreas and I will tell you a little bit about the Komunat project that we were and actually still are part of. Next slide, please.
Yes.
So the Komunat is a voting advice application for local elections developed by Team Tomorrow from Stuttgart. And the motivation behind this app was the generally low voter turnout in local elections in Germany, which is usually due to the overwhelming amount of candidates that are listed for these kinds of elections. So what Komunat does is it matches the user with a list of candidates based on how the user and the candidate rank a set of political statements and political principles with regards to how important these statements are to them. Next, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so where do we come in? We joined the project in January 2020, which was about half a year after the local elections in Stuttgart. And the first big task that we were faced with was getting the raw JSON data into a format that we can then work on with for further analysis. And then our main analysis consisted of two main parts, working on the user data and also working on the candidate data, which was the main part because there wasn't actually much user data that we can work with. And the main output of this was a Shiny app that we built that lets you look at the individual candidates and individual parties and lets you see how they performed in the app and how they ranked each statement. And then importantly, we also looked at how representative the Komunat results were compared to the election results and how the candidates performed in both.
Is that correct?
Yep, that's Andreas.
Sorry. That's Andreas.
It's my part. So, yeah, on February this year, Voto officially replaced Komunat and was launched 1 month prior to the local elections in Hesse and Lower Saxony. Now, since we had no data on customer satisfaction in our Komunat project, we were unable to provide any advice on what the users think of the app. Did the app meet the expectations of both Team Tomorrow and the users? So it was a chance for us to collect the data using a little survey we implemented in the app. So apart from the overall satisfaction, we were also interested what young first-time voters think of the app, which is the target group of Team Tomorrow. And yeah, so overall, the responses were very positive. An overwhelming majority of the respondents expressed a positive opinion of the app, including 97% of the first-time voters. 76% of the respondents in Lower Saxony recommended using the app, and nearly half of the respondents in both states also agreed that they would vote for the candidate proposed by Voto. So Voto actually meets the expectations of both the users and the creators. And yeah, finally, we are also very excited to continue supporting Team Tomorrow with with our statistical assessments when the app will be launched abroad in Austria and Switzerland in 2022. So next year.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Just I want to go one slide back. So I already said this to Andreas and Eileen yesterday. It started in January, and since then they have been working with them. And I mean, it's not a project anymore. It's more of a long time collaboration. And so this is kind of the ideal outcome for us, that we bring a data scientist or two data scientists to nonprofit, and then they just stick around because they like each other so much. And yeah, I don't even have to worry about this being a successful collaboration in the future. Awesome. And then now, Leo Bob, I will try to put you on. So we had a short notice cancellation due to illness. Leo Boff is here. I'm not sure whether we can hear her.
Yes, do you hear me?
We can hear you. That's good. Yeah, you don't have any video, but I think that's fine.
Yes, it was indeed short notice because one of our members of our dream team got sick, unfortunately, but I will still present this project, which actually as a Komunat also project, right, it already kind of became a long-term collaboration because we also liked each other so much that we started to work together with Correlate volunteers, but who actually became more long-term researchers. So we worked in collaboration with Kiez in Paris, and we worked as well with iNaturalist platform, and we worked with UCL London collaborating Monkey, who worked with OpenStreetMaps. And our project was essentially about citizen science data. If you, by the way, are interested, we are always open to learn more about some other research around citizen science. And in Paris chapter, where I am from, in Correlate, we are as well very much with Kati and some other people. We are very interested to continue this project around citizen science data. But what was this project about? We had the data of iNaturalist from different cities on how people collect information about, for example, let's say birds, plants, whatever they see. And then afterwards, they don't just observe and make fun pictures, but they also identify, right? So this data is openly available also on our GitHub. So in the next slide, you will see that actually the project goal or research questions was actually to help iNaturalist, right, as a community, which is also volunteers community, right? So it's volunteers, it's like volunteers analyzing data from volunteers to help them to understand how users are, right? What they're doing actually, right? Are they doing well, or maybe there is a turnover which is crazy? And apparently what we found out in the next phase of that is actually that users, when we classify them by temporal activity, there is some trend, which is observations per users, which is going down, right? So we thought, oh my God, this is probably not good. We probably have users probably are not interested anymore. But the thing is that these KPIs of projects, of course, is not enough. And so because we had really good network scientists in our team, we decided that actually, as you will see in the next slide, we decided also to use some extended analysis, not just look at this data from this perspective, but also use it as a attempt to classify what is happening, how users are they only making observations or also doing something else, right? And it turns out that there are some people whom you see in red, and they're, it's log scale, but still you see that there are some who are really doing a lot of them. And as we found out, and what we do, is that they also are following this kind of 99-1 rule. More about that you can find in the future paper, which we do with Correlate. And also in the next slide, we actually finally show you the kind of backbone of this community, which is done with a network project, Network 2 Wolf, designed also in Berlin, actually, by colleagues of one of Correlators, where we had tried to show those users how they're connected. Are high users activity are actually hubs, or maybe people who actually talk too much and don't do anything are hubs, because it's actually not trivial, right? Turns out that there is some scale-free behavior in this network, and we can talk about it tomorrow as well. But so we tried to address this issue of how community looks like, not just from average quantities, but also go to structural, and it turns out to be useful as well. We try to continue to work on that in our free time, and everything what you can recommend us, we are very open. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yes.
I think
so
yeah,
yes,
you were writing a paper.
Yes, we are writing the paper, which should be soon in the Citizen Science Journal Theory and Practice. I mean, we are still in process. And if you have any suggestions, I can also put you link to the basically our Correlate Citizen Science project, which is not right. It's yes, I need to send it to everyone, but it's something which we are happy to share with others. And
awesome.
Thanks again for amazing team.
No,
and
thanks for coming on such short notice. If you want to learn more about this project and network models, you can also hear and probably see Leo Wolf tomorrow afternoon. Modeling corner. But yeah, thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Awesome. Okay, and finally, we're of course almost on time. We won't have a Q&A, I think, for this part of this part of the project showcase. For everyone, for the speakers who also already left and who are probably hanging out in the stage now, you please go also to the Q&A tab and maybe answer some of the questions in written form, because there were some questions coming up which we missed in answering. So yeah, please head over to the Q&A tab and answer some of them by replying. Okay, but now final presenter today is Wally, and she will be talking also about the Correlate X Netherlands project with G-Moji.
So hi everyone. So basically 2 teams from Correlate worked on this project, one before the other. And G-Moji is actually a mental health app aimed at youth.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first team basically set up the whole project, and then they built the entire ML pipeline and for emoji prediction. So basically what G-Moji wanted to know is they have some phone sensor data. They also did a baseline survey. So they wanted to evaluate the feasibility of predicting emoji inputs by use for the mental health app. So the idea is that if I can predict if someone is sad, then maybe I can, at that point, I can intervene. That was basically the idea. So one query they had is, okay, how feasible it is to actually do that. So the first team built the entire ML pipeline using baseline survey data, and we basically tried to use a bit more of the time dimension. So we added a benchmark model that includes things, for example, the previous emoji that the person keyed in, and we added the phone sensor data as well as past emoji data. We did a train test split that respected the time, and we also did we added an explainable model so that we can look at the feature importance. And other than that, we also did a bit more things. We looked at the app attrition to make sure that the people who are sad are actually still on the app. And we also reviewed a bit of the problem definition and made some recommendations related to that based on G-Moji's objectives as well. So the next slide, please. Yeah. So what we found is, in terms of app attrition, we do see that people who keyed in sad emojis do seem to drop out at the start, but at the same time, it's not all bad news, because people who stayed for a long time, they also tend to key in more sad emojis. So they don't manage to catch the entire forest, but they get some trees, which is still good news. What is not so good news is basically we found that the benchmark model gives us a pretty low accuracy at 65% already. And even using all the ML methods, we cannot get much better than 65%. So they did have a problem though, that the phone sensor data was not very complete, actually very incomplete. And but still, when we look into literature, we found that other studies that have done a similar topic, they had similar sample sizes, but they had more complete data per individual, and yet they still had pretty comparable prediction performance as what we did. So in the end, it's, I guess, not very good news for the organization, but yeah, now G-Moji kind of knows that maybe this is not really the direction they should be heading with their data, and maybe they can use the data to better use, for example, for operational purposes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's just also a finding, right? That it does not work as intended, and that they should probably use the data differently, or find different avenues. Okay, thank you, Wally, and also thank you to Lyubov and Eileen and Andreas for their talks. We won't have a Q&A because, of course, we are a bit over time, as is to be expected when you do something like this. I want to again thank all the speakers for presenting their projects. I had a lot of fun. I hope all the viewers also had a lot of fun. What is next? We now have a 10-minute break until a 9-minute break. And then at 6:40, we will continue, but not here on the stage. But actually you will have to go to the sessions, and they will appear in 5 minutes. And then you can choose between 3 very exciting topics. First, there will be a panel in German about data science in the social sector. What are the chances? What are the hurdles of data science in the social sector? We have some amazing guests. And then there is an introduction to data security with Ilya for nonprofits, but definitely also interesting for everyone else, I suppose. Ilya is a long-time correlator, and he knows his stuff. And then finally, Nina my colleague Nina, who is our head of data literacy, will talk about with Vic from DataQuest, our partner. They will talk about data science education, also for nonprofits, but also interesting for everyone. So I see you in 8 minutes or 7 minutes. And yeah, see you then.